speaking of fun, I'm ready to do that, to have some fun today with all of you, and really excited to share that our Friday has become even more special. It still continues to be Ask and Answered, and it is now sponsored through Fundraising Academy's Cause Selling Education. So this name is not unfamiliar. Tony Bell has been a wonderful advocate and peer mentor here with us at Fundraising Academy. And so Tony will join us on occasion for these Fridays Ask and Answer episodes. So again, we will still do the questions just as normal, and just so grateful to have Fundraising Academy as our show sponsor. Thank you so much to them and to all of our presenting sponsors. As you know, we start every episode by saying thank you, extending our sincerest appreciation and gratitude to each and every one of these companies. They are all led by rock star champions, and they literally exist to help you do more good. So please do go online, find them. I always like to say, like them, love them, give them some follows. And again, they are really here to help you continue the great work that you're doing in your community. So please do help us thank them. And thanks to Julia Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I am so glad to be back with you here today, again, for our Friday Ask and Answered. And Julia, this has just been such a fun journey. I am honored to continue to play as we move forward and navigate COVID rebound. I am Jarrett Ransom, also known as the Nonprofit Nerd, your nonprofit nerd, her nonprofit nerd, everyone's nonprofit nerd, CEO of the Raven Group. And again, I'm just going to do a little, shameless promotion, but I've been very active on Instagram. So again, if you want to follow my travel, I post a lot on Nonprofit Nerd, which is my business Instagram. But as I travel, I'm also sharing about the nonprofits and the different community spaces in which I am living, because that is huge to me as a global citizen, that not only am I traveling, but I'm becoming immersed in the community in which I am traveling. So I share a lot about that on my Instagram, Nonprofit Nerd.
I love it. I think that's fabulous. Well, you are coming to us today from Park City, Utah, which is really an interesting opportunity for all of us to learn. So when you get back, for those of you who were joining us in the Chitty Chat, Park City, Utah, like many other vacation destination communities, is really challenged by some unique things that happened during the pandemic. And so we'll be really interested to hear about some of your meetings and some of your lessons when you get back next week. So we've got Kaylee from Portland, Oregon, who's written in, do you think it's a good or bad idea to have a board member attend a final ask meeting? Really that's interesting.
Interesting is the word I was just about to say as well, Kaylee. And so I'm going to say it depends on if this board member has been involved in the previous meetings. So when it comes to the cause selling education and model of Fundraising Academy, there are several steps, different phases. So I am going to say that really I would go back to see how this board member has played a role in the continuation thus far, right? Has he, she, or they really been involved in the conversations with the donor? If they have before and you think that they have a significant relationship, a good rapport, I would say it shouldn't hurt to bring this board member with you. However, if they really have not been involved, I don't think you should pull them in and, as you cross the finish line or as you seek to cross the finish line, really with this ask meeting. I would trust in yourself and show up poised and confident to make that ask, because you yourself, Kaylee, have done all the work thus far.
I tend to agree with you, because unless the board member really understands your journey that you've done, if you're following the cause selling method or anything, it could kind of throw you off and throw the cadence off and everything. What about taking that board member to a stewardship meeting? So as you move forward, it's just because you've, concluded the ask doesn't mean you're not going to connect with this person anymore. So what if you did something like maybe even an on-site tour and you include a board member, or you go to coffee, or you even meet up on Zoom? Maybe move them to that piece. Because I agree with you, Jared. I think there could be some disruption
Yeah.
or stress, maybe like the word stress, like you
Well, I
don't.
think it just really depends on how they've been involved in the conversations up to the ask meeting point. But I like the opportunity of bringing them into the fold for stewardship. That's a great role for any board member, is to be a part of thanking and, providing gratitude, and telling their own story as why they choose to serve on the board of this organization. That's a great impact story. And stewardship is a really important role for all board members.
Yeah, I absolutely love that you said that. I think that's cool. Okay, we have Charlene from St. Louis. This is an odd question. No questions are odd. This is an
Or
odd
dumb or stupid.
or dumb or
Right.
stupid. This is an odd question, but I have been asked by my new CEO to wear a name badge with nonprofit branding on it. Think a name badge like you would see at a bank or a store. I have to admit, I hate this idea. Wow, this is fascinating.
Yeah, and to me, when I think of a, nonprofit branding on it, I'm hoping that that's your nonprofit's name, maybe your mission statement, maybe your value proposition. There's so many ways in how you can really customize a name badge now. So I would encourage you, Charlene, to really see this as an opportunity to help tell your message. I think there's many reasons maybe why nonprofit employees and any employees are asked to wear a name badge. One, it sets you apart from your constituency base or your client base, right? And so, for instance, for me, I worked in an organization that was for developmentally disabled adults, and so it was really important that we knew who was staff, who wasn't, because that's pretty important. But then we also, as a safety issue, we knew that people in a certain area were supposed to be there based off of their name badge. And it wasn't just the name, like we had some other, qualifiers, in there. But I think that that's, something to consider. Why is your CEO asking you to wear this badge? And hopefully they're not asking just you singularly, but really the entire staff. And I actually enjoy this for volunteers as well. So I'm going to say, I go with your CEO on this. And I think really having that delineation and really just acknowledging who you are, and even who your volunteers are, I really think it's a good thing.
Interesting. Okay, you know what? I wouldn't have said that, because right off the bat, I'm like with Charlene. I hate this idea. But I really appreciate what you said and how you spun it around. I hadn't thought of this as a like a staff security issue. I mean, those badges aren't just passed out willy-nilly.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, especially if you're in an environment where maybe you're working with children or minors and you have background checks, or you have security risk with your clients or for your clients. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing. And I like what you said, and that is get to the back end of it. Why was this why is this a new procedure or standard? Because I think it sounds like Charlene's just been asked, and like, here's the bags of the new tags, put them on, versus, understanding what it means. Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, I don't think we've ever had that question.
No, I think that's a good question. And yeah, again, I really just like to see, like, who's who amongst the campus or the staff, which is why I also like the volunteer name badge. And it doesn't have to be, that hard acrylic. It could be like a lanyard style that you just slip right into that plastic cover. Same for board members. One of the organizations also did document destruction. So we as employees had to go through a security clearance, right? Just to be in that area, for me to give tours in that area. And so it really just depends on the organization and how you're serving.
Yeah, okay, I changed my mind. You won me over, Miss Jarrett. You won me over. I know. Wow. I'm like impressed. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Okay, Erica from Colorado Springs, Colorado. What is the average time for a nonprofit to reimburse development team members? I take a lot of donors out to lunch or coffee, and I have to pay for it up front. It's really a burden.
Yeah.
Interesting.
This is definitely a process and procedure that I would recommend that, early on in your job placement, that's a conversation. This is a question you would not think to ask in an interview, but I do think that once you're on board and you realize how things need to be paid, once you realize yourself, Erica, and all of you watching, because I've been in the same position where you really cover the cost, and it could be 30, 45, 60 days. And depending on where you are in your financial security and your own personal life, that could be a really long time.
Yeah.
And I think that, Erica, we've had a similar question in which Julie and I both talked about how it's important to have a credit card for your team. There used to be this thing called petty cash, and I don't know if it's still used, but there's even some prepaid credit cards that could be used. There's a lot of different ways to reconsider how this financial process is done. I would go to your supervisor, ask if there's an opportunity to, inquire in some of these alternative ways of what's being currently used at your organization. Just let them know, share as authentically as you can. This is a financial burden on me and my personal account. It would really be most helpful for me to continue, and be successful in my job and stewardship of our constituency base if this obstacle was removed.
I agree. And I think the thing of it is that, there are, gift card concepts where you preload them. It doesn't have to be the traditional credit card that oftentimes freaks everyone out. It could literally be that type of a prepaid card system. And yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's a big burden. And, the reality of it is that it's not just a reimbursement, because you, Erica, you've probably figured this out. This is costing you money and time and energy and effort in other ways. So it's not as clear as just, reimbursement. I mean, there's an actual cost to you for doing this. So good luck. And I like what you said, Jarrett, and that is have an authentic conversation with that supervisor. That you never go wrong with that. And if this will not be the only time you have to have a heart to heart.
Yeah. And I get it. Talking about money, especially personal finances, is often awkward and difficult. But I hope that you can remove that awkwardness and feeling of embarrassment or shame, because I would hope that you don't have that and you really see this as more of an empowering conversation, because chances are, Erica, if you are feeling this, other team members are likely feeling it as well.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Absolutely. And then if you, to end on this, if you share your accounts with a spouse or somebody else in your household, this puts a burden on them too. It's not just you. I mean, so wow. Okay, let's go to Devin in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm wondering what should be in a typical bad boy clause for major gifts and naming rights. First of all, I get that the name has to change. The concept is what constitutes a course of action to take when a donor acts in a manner that opposes the nonprofit's values.
Mhm.
This is
I'm going
a
to let
big,
you start here, Julia, because I know you've got a lot to talk
yeah,
about this. I didn't even know what the bad boy clause was
really?
until until I learned it from you.
Yeah. It's a really big deal. And it is traditional. It has, attorneys, most attorneys will know it as a bad boy clause. I mean, you won't see it spelled out necessarily in legal documents, but first and foremost, back up. If you have a major gift or something that involves naming rights, you should have a legal document. And that legal document should cover many things, such as the duration of the naming right, the management of the naming right if the business or person is, the business is sold, the person passes away, the person has a name change. There are a lot of things. And this is why we talk about this all the time, Jarrett, is when you're looking for legal representation, you really need to find an attorney who works with nonprofits. Just because you have, the sheepskin of attorney hanging on the wall doesn't mean that you are going to know all things that the nonprofit sector deals with. So that's why we advocate this piece of it. This is a really big issue because if you do not have some of these decisions in place, then the remedy for it can take a long time, can cost a lot of money. There can be hard feelings within the family or the heirs or the businesses that are involved. And so you have to really be thoughtful. And this is hard for us in the nonprofit sector to do because we're looking at that money, we're looking at that big win, and we don't want to upset anybody and we want to secure the deal, right? But this is really a big issue. Hopefully, if you are working, Devin, with somebody who is of that caliber and they've done this type of work before, they will understand that process. If they're a corporation, undoubtedly they will. If they're an individual, that might be a challenge. If they're a family foundation, they probably will have done this if they've pursued the course of naming rights. Classic issues within the Catholic Church, who had oftentimes across the world named particular buildings within their campuses, that I'm not Catholic, that's not the right word, but within their parishes, as some of the problems and the troubles that the Catholic Church has had, they've had to remove those names. And think about it, this is not an inexpensive thing for a nonprofit to do, to take off a major sign, or if a name has been chiseled into a part of the architecture. I mean, these have real costs associated with them, not just marketing costs. So this must be described. And if I'm not mistaken, we have a course on the American Nonprofit Academy that just deals with this. We have over 100 courses, and so I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure we have that.
And I don't have much to add. I think that's phenomenal advice again. And thankfully, I don't have much experience in this arena or with this challenge. However, what I would encourage all of you to do is, as you revise or create your gift acceptance policy, you're also looking at this policy, right? So it's kind of that whole how might we consider a breakup before we even start the relationship? And so that way it's very clear on all sides of the parties, thank you so much for your gift. This is our gift acceptance policy. And if ever, something were to go awry, regardless, I think that's just really good to know. It also sets really clear boundaries. So your board and your executive team are very clear on the decision, and it's an equitable decision made for anyone and everyone that this may come up for. But that way you're really creating it proactively instead of reactively and in a crisis state.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I mean, this should be kind of a pro forma piece as your organization grows, because this is where you get into the big bucks. And so this isn't something that you want to just figure out because you've achieved a major donation. You want to know, you want to be pre-armed on this. And so absolutely, because this is going to be legally described in some sort of document. And so this must be done within that purview. I mean, this is not the sort of thing that your executive team is going to necessarily write out themselves. They may be asked to say, what are our key issues of your mission, vision, and values, right? But aside from that, some of these things are very, very specific. And where it gets a little tight and we need to move on is, we believe in this country that you are innocent until proven guilty. But we all know that those things can take a long time, and you can be, played out in the court of public opinion. So what does your nonprofit do, with that? It's a really interesting discussion. It happens a lot, and we don't talk about it until we're faced with it and it's a crisis. So yay team Devin for getting on this. Yay team. Okay, Juana from Columbus, Ohio, is asking the question, Jarrett, and it's a really kind of a shocking one at this point in time, but I'm thinking we're going to be hearing about this more. What is the average time of leave of absence or specifically for a sabbatical? I love my nonprofit, but need a break after COVID. Also, I would like to take advantage of some education tracks that would help my career.
This is
Wow.
such a really insightful question, and it's one that I don't know the answer to. I really think, and I hate to say this, really, it depends, and it depends on the organization, how financially solvent your organization is. What is your succession plan at these organizations? How have you cross-trained different team members? There is in our community here, Julia, as you know, there's an organization that provides a year to the executive director for an educational tract, but then the executive director then is removed from their organization for that year, truly. And so that's a great time to bring in an interim executive director. So I would say, depending on where you are, Joanna, with your organization, this might be an opportunity to bring in an interim transition leader. And again, this person, like myself and many of us out there that have been professionally trained, that's a big key piece of it, professionally trained. We don't come in as babysitters or substitute teachers. We really come in at a high level. It also provides a great organizational assessment and kind of like a health temperature check to see things in a different way. But therefore, you would then return back to your position. And that is something that you might want to consider. Another thing I think about here, if you can't take a full leave of absence, maybe you can be flexible and negotiate your current working arrangement, what that might look like, PTO, pay time off time, sick, personal, that kind of care, a flex schedule. So see really what the opportunities are. I'm taking your question much further, but I would say as you look to advocate for this solution for you, I would have an A, B, and C plan. This is really what I want. You ask for that leave of absence, you ask for that sabbatical, you let them know exactly what you intend that to look like. And then you also have a B plan and a C plan of kind of different ways and what you think that might look like. Again, I am not HR. I'm not in that space. Staffing boutique. Katie might have some better information and advice to share there, as well as Sky Mercer, who's with Sky HR Consulting. But I think there's a couple of things to consider here. And again, your community might have a solution for you. So you might want to research that, but also consider what an interim professional could do for you and your organization.
Yeah, I like how you laid this out, and I totally agree with you. Look at what the safety and the structure is of your own organization. Is there somebody that can step in already good to go or not? I mean, that's going to really impact how the executive team and the board responds to this request. And I love that you said, come up with 3 scenarios, 3 options on how this would work. I think that's brilliant. I really do.
I think the biggest thing is when you approach your supervisor or whomever you need to approach for this approval, I can imagine the first thing they're thinking is, well, I have no idea how that's going to work.
Right.
And so again, you provide those solutions and say, I didn't either. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I've come up with these 3 different scenarios and kind of mapped out what that might look like.
I love it. I think you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. I always tell my team, if you have a problem, that's going to be normal and that's going to be natural. Don't come to me don't come to me with the problem. Come to me with the problem and 3 options of how you think it's going to work, because you know best, and I'll help talk you through it, and then we'll move from there. But don't just come and lay a problem at my feet.
So personal, my 10-year-old is in this, that's not going to work. We can't do that. Negate everything. And our family motto now has become provide a solution.
I love it.
So as soon as something comes up, whether it's me or him, because he's good at reminding me, the first thing we say to each other is provide a solution.
It's a habit. It can be a habit. And yeah, I mean, I fall into that trap. Okay, we have time for one more question. And we did not get through all the questions. We've had some actual questions that have come in today. So Chitra, we will get back to you on that. So we're sorry. And Mary, we will have to get back to you as well. Okay, this is a really interesting thing that I think we're going to be hearing more and more, getting asked. I will be leaving my nonprofit for another organization. There's no ill will, just a better opportunity. Is it bad form to share my news and new contact information from my current email account? I'm assuming work email account. Name withheld, Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, it's bad form. I think it is. I do.
So that's interesting. I've seen it done so much so recently. And I really think, first of all, that you want to have that transparent conversation with your supervisor to make sure that that is okay. I would use it as a great opportunity to pass the baton, introduce the next person that might be coming in and taking your space. Because one, the open rate of a familiar email address, is a good thing. You're able to make that introduction. Now they might not want you to share your personal email in that communication. So again, I really think it's a conversation to have with your supervisor. This is a wonderful HR conversation when it comes to offboarding employees. What are our policies and procedures? What are we okay with? What are we not okay with? And again, I always think to err on the side of let's provide what needs to be said in kind of a blurb statement. So if you are involved in an organization and you do not have an offboarding policy or a statement of this is how we would like for you to exit and share your news, now is a great time to create that. And it doesn't have to be long, 3 to 5 sentences. But if you create a standard statement that all employees have access and ability to use, I think that really, creates much more of a professional looking process across the board.
It needs to be predetermined. You're absolutely right. And I think it's really important, really, really important to identify if that has occurred, who is going to be replacing you or who temporarily will be that contact. So whether you're in development, you're in operations, whether you're in
program, really,
anything. I mean, that I just think is a good behavior for the health of your organization. Well, we could talk about this for a long time, but it is time to go. We are so excited to again announce the support of Fundraising Academy, cause selling education as our ask and answer partner. You're going to be seeing some of their folks coming on with us and offering their response to our questions that come in. So we're really, really excited about that. Tony Bell has been doing a program with us and he's been a master of information. And he doesn't always say the same things that you and I say, Jarrett, which is super cool to get a different voice on that. Again, I'm Julia Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. Been joined today by my nonprofit nerd. I always call it my nonprofit nerd. Your nonprofit nerd, the nonprofit nerd, Jarrett Ransom, CEO of the Raven Group. If you've got questions for us, get them to us. You've got about 4 or 5 ways. We want to know what is what's going on in your world. And the questions are changing radically as we are in this recovery. It's fascinating to see how they are changing. Again, thank you to our presenting sponsors. Without you, we would not be here. And so we are so honored. That's right.
I've been practicing my heart, so I hope they're.
My heart's like that. My heart has heart disease. Hey, everybody, thanks so much. Have a great and restful weekend. Monday, we will be off celebrating 4th of July and the Independence weekend that is going to be so different than the Independence weekend of last year. So still be safe. And we will see you here on Tuesday. Remember, stay well so you can do well. Thanks, Jarrett.
Bye, everyone.